Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the DeFord lecture series. My name is Elizabeth Catlos, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Geological Sciences at the University of Texas at Austin. We're part of the Jackson School of Geosciences, and the DeFord lecture series is our departmental seminar series. It's been a requirement and tradition for all graduate students since the late 1940s. The lecture series is named after Professor Roland DeFord, who joined the university as a professor in 1948 with the purpose of enhancing the quality of the graduate program of the department. Our lecture series is supported by a range of endowments, and today's speaker is the Edwin Allday Lecturer. The lectureship was established in 1982 from the estate of Edwin Allday to support visiting lecturers in geological sciences. Born in 1929, Edwin Allday was an independent oil and gas operator in Houston, Texas. He also had cattle and ranching operations in the Red River and Houston counties in Texas. Allday attended the University of Texas, receiving his Bachelor's of Science degree in geology in 1951 and his Master's in geology in 1953. The Fondren Foundation established the Edwin Allday Centennial Chair in Subsurface Geology to allow for the recruitment of a person with special expertise in the field of subsurface geology. Our speaker today will be introduced formally by Dr. Julia Clark.
Thank you, Liz. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Marcelo Leppe, who is coming to us live from Punta Arenas, Chile. He is director of the Chilean Antarctic Institute. And before that, he was the scientific lead at INACH, the Chilean Antarctic Institute. And as science lead, he pioneered the founding of their paleontology lab about 10 years ago. Actually, he just let me know this is the 10-year anniversary of the Paleo Lab at INACH, and which is a great accomplishment, as I see it, at least. And for 10 years, he's been doing also extensive fieldwork in the Southern Andes, as well as being a part of or leading 15 expeditions to Antarctica, just even earlier in his career, not counting all the times that he's been there during his directorship. He's also had some kind of unique insights into the kind of current status of Antarctic science as INACH director. And he's been part of the treaty consultation, the Chilean delegation, for the last approximately 4 to 5 years. And he got his early training in biology and then in paleobotany. And that is the background that he brings to his science that he's going to speak with us about today. But you'll see that he's diversified into looking holistically at faunal development in the southern South America and Antarctica. So it's a really great pleasure, Marcelo, to have you here today. And we only wish that it could be in person and that we could have you, just enjoy a more casual visit with all of our faculty in the department. And with that, I would like to say, take it away.
Thank you very much, Julia and Liz. Firstly, I would like to thank for you inviting me to be part of the DeFord lecture series at Jackson School of Geoscience, and to be able to share with you some of the research that we have carried out, focusing on the complicated natural history of the South America and Antarctic connection, especially focused in the Mesozoic, and the implications that they had for the evolution of the austral continent's biota and their current expression in the spread continents. So I have entitled this presentation, The Biogeographical and Evolutionary Role of Southern Patagonia during the Late Cretaceous and in the conformation of the modern biotas. So I want to start with this very nice view of Las Chinas Valley in southern Patagonia. Try to point it out what will be the topics that I want to touch in this presentation. First, a short review about Joseph Dalton Hooker's emerged land bridges, his theoretical 200 years ago idea. Second, is climate change on a geological scale an evolutionary driver? Third, since Meister-Wedelian province, then I want to touch, this is the main part of my presentation, Cerro China's paleontological complex, and also Notophagus, one of the most important genus in terms of tree plants in Gondwanic biogeography, and some of the new findings that are producing more questions than answers. But I am a big fan of movies and TV series, and this is one of that I want to share with you from the Erebus and Terror. These two vessels have visited Antarctica in between 1839 and 1843 and produced a very nice set of papers and reviews, draws about the mounts Erebus and Terror in Antarctica because of the name of the vessels, led by James Clark Ross, and some of the pictures. But the most important thing, not the TV series. You can see it today. The Terror that has the very sad history of these vessels after the expedition to Antarctica, trying to find the Northern Passage in the Arctic. But one of the most important scientist on board was Joseph Dalton Hooker. Actually, Dalton Hooker's, this is Benedict Cumberbatch as Sir Joseph Dalton Hooker in Creation, that movie from 2009, and this is the original draw. It's very interesting. It's very similar, but he pointed out about something really important in terms of the modern biogeography. He says the similarities in between the floras of Southern South America and part of Australia and New Zealand are pointing the direction of the possibility to have emerged bridges, land bridges in between both continents, and probably these land bridges were connected with Antarctica. This was very revolutionary idea. Originally was taken in count, but after some time and the apparition of the continental drift and all the Wegener's theories was put it in one side, and after some years we are taking again this weird idea again under evaluation. I want to explain it more because something really important is happening and start to happen 20 years ago with the first discoveries of these cooling events at the end of the Cretaceous. Of course, Sakos have produced this very relevant paper in 2001, who was shown the evolution of the temperature and how this evolution of the temperature were closely related with some phenomena of creation and apparition of land bridges, the marine currents, and the isolation of Antarctica. Very important determinant that in the recent evolution of climate, but was very important also in the understanding of what happened at the end of the Cretaceous and especially in the Eocene climatic optimum. But the resolution was not so good and was an initial step, but after some time, in 2018, Brian Huber have produced this fantastic graphic showing that the evolution of the climate at the end of the Cretaceous and during the Paleocene, the Paleogene was very interesting because of the occurrence of these events, especially Albian Aptian boundary interval, the Cretaceous thermal maximum, the Deccan volcanism event, Paleocene Eocene thermal maximum, and the Middle Eocene climatic optimum. these events were very important, especially what happened at the end of the Cretaceous and during the first 40 million years of the Cenozoic. But later, Christian Lienert, German scientists, have produced a fantastic paper showing, together with another set of papers appeared in the last part of the last decade, have produced a group of data showing that the cooling events at the end of the Cretaceous, we were living in the Cretaceous in a greenhouse world, but at the end of the Cretaceous, some intensive events of cooling happened in the bottom of the ocean, also in the surface, and they have an expression in the apparition of different taxa have indicated these cooling events. But also, Lienert connected these cooling events with the disapparition of the western sea, interior sea in North America, and that points to me and to other scientists to make that question. If that happened in shallow waters of the Cretaceous in Northern Hemisphere, especially in North America, with this very important event in terms of biogeography, connecting disconnected hemispheres of North America in the past, the western and the eastern side, what happened in the south? What happened in southern South America, where we have different basins evolving since the Triassic. So this is the picture of what happened at the end of the Cretaceous. We had in the southern South America the Magallanes or Austral Basin evolving just in the eastern flank of ancient ridge, and the Antarctic Peninsula with another basin evolving called the James Ross Basin, where today we have Seymour Island, James Ross, Vega Island, and all these famous, from the point of view of paleontology, localities. Today, we will focus in this area because if you can recognize from the graphic, the Western Interior Sea has also shallow waters in both areas. So if the cooling event or events at the end of the Cretaceous were significant in a global scale, we can, it's possible to estimate that we can possibly trace these sea level fluctuations at the end of the Cretaceous in different localities in southern Chile or Argentina, and also in the northern part of the peninsula. This is called glacioeustasy, and was a concept very important in terms of the explanation of the early population of the Americas from Bering. Was also exactly the same phenomena. So the recruitment of ice in the Arctic and the Antarctic have produced a net balance, negative balance in the sea level. So the sea level falls down, and this drop in the sea level have produced connections, as this you can see here in the northern part of the peninsula and southern South America. We have produced this graphic looking more in detail. There was an arc of islands, an active volcano arc at the end of the Cretaceous. This is the Austral Basin with a lot of rivers falling into this giant Austral or Magallanes Basin. And in the other side, on a specular, a mirror basin in James Ross area, in the eastern flank of the northern part of the peninsula. The condition today is very different, but in an analogous way, you can see today the evolution of the volcanic arc in the Sandwich Islands, just in the border of this Scotia plate. Another important concept related with what happened at the end of the Cretaceous was developed by Zinsmeister, and he called the Wedelian province to an area in between southern South America and northern peninsula in the coastal area, intermareal coastal area, for marine invertebrates that share a distribution that also reached Australia, the eastern side of the Australian continent, and New Zealand was under this Wedelian biogeographic province. But I have to say here, there is two different concepts in the literature. One is the Wedelian province, and the second one is the Wedelian biogeographic province. And this is important because one of them, the original one, proposed by Zinsmeister in the 79, is talking about the invertebrates in the coastal area of Antarctica, South America, and part of Oceania. But the new concept includes also the terrestrial area, and this is part of one paper that have produced Otero in 2015. Otero is a Chilean researcher mainly focused in marine reptiles, but also have worked with other vertebrates. He's showing that this area also exhibits some similarities at the end of the Cretaceous and part of the Cenozoic. This is important because also from the point of view of paleobotany, there is very evident, as Dalton Hookers have explained it before, that the similarities are very big. Actually, in some botanist circles, they call it this area the area of the Antarctic flora. So Antarctic flora is living today as a heritage of an ancient flora to have the distribution in the Wedelian province. But this is very general, and actually we want to go further and to trying to discriminate. That's where have appeared this fantastic locality that we have discovered 10 years ago. There were virtually only a few references in the literature. The first of were in 1897, when Argentinian and Chilean scientists were working in the establishment of the borders in between both countries. Actually, the Argentinians came to one main locality, Cerro Guido, and have described it as part of Argentina. Of course, in the same year, the Chilean group of scientists, or also the German scientists who were contracted by the Chilean government, have described the region as part of Chile. But today it's in Chile, and that's the reason why the original collections of plants are today in Argentinian museums in Buenos Aires. This is the locality. This is the valley of the Las Chinas River. Actually, these first expeditions never visited this area. The Cerro Guido is to the south. We are looking from the south to the north. Passing this last hill is the Argentinian border, Chilean-Argentina border, and you can fall down another 200 meters to Calafate city in the other side of the border. But this is a very remote area full of pumas, the cougars, and llamas, and condors, and a lot of wildness exhibiting the best part of the soul in Patagonia. The iconic point is Las Chinas Hill, and a group of scientists you can see here were working in one locality that were a little bit famous later, the Hadrosaur site. And another view from the west to the east, and you can see the extension, 20 kilometers long. In the widest part of the valley, there are 7 kilometers. So it's not so easy to work here. During the summer, you can reach 30 degrees, but also you can have snow that is not happening in any other part of the province of Última Esperanza. This is close to the Torres del Paine National Park. This is our original camp. We call it El Puesto. The locality, the original settlement was just in front, in the other side of the river. But after some floods, we decided to move it here. And this is our main station. But now we have every year one camp in this center part of the hill, and we are preparing a new camp closer to the bone bed. So, as I mentioned, is a locality close to the Chilean-Argentinian border, where the border is actually the regular shape of the border is north-south, but this is west-east, and this part of the outcrops of Las Chinas are composed mainly by Cerro Guido. It's a high hill over 1,000 meters. Las Chinas at the beginning of the valley, just in order to have it in mind, El Puesto, and here in the middle is Sauropodo. The Sauropodo is called sauropod because of the finding of a big bone of a sauropod there, titanosaur. Another beautiful thing about this area is the possibility to establish a working in ages. These steps that you can find are perfectly ordered with the oldest part of the valley in the western side, and in the eastern side at the top of the hills there is the contact with the Manaique Formation. It's Eocene, but recently and together with the work with Sarah George and Brian Horton, Julia and his team, her team, we have discovered a KT boundary here and the area have no unconformities, and it's probably the best candidate of an KPG border in Chile. We have only one other locality with the erosion of the last 300,000 years, so the KPG boundary is not present there. So this is the only one, and one of the southernmost KPG borders in the world. Just with the comparison with Seymour Island, where there is the other KPG, a famous one, studied during the last 50 years. So this is the column of the area. Is going from the Campanian and through the Maastrichtian and includes part of the Eocene, the Manaique Formation. So here we have Tres Pasos Formation in the Campanian, the transition to Dorotea, that is continental marine continental, shallow marine and continental outcrops. But one very interesting thing immediately have raised about this column is, first of all, comprise around 20 million years. Second, the alternance of marine and continental environments. So that has significance. Later, I want to explain a little bit more about this. But the most important thing in terms of paleontology was the finding of this long list of animals and plants, including marine reptiles as plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, dinosaurs as allosaurs, sauropods, theropods, turtles, frogs, crocodiles, some mammals that I want to mention later, shark teeth, bivalves, invertebrates, ammonites, gastropods, brachiopods, bryozoans, and also calcareous nanofossils, ostracods, benthic foraminifera, planktonic foraminifera. And the most important thing for me, it's leaves, woods, and something really weird, flowers, pollen grains, of course, spores, and some insects, not only in traces. So we have also the oldest fossil of an insect in Cerro Guido, and we found a second one closely related with one bed with a lot of plants. The dating were pointing around 80 to these 63 or 64 million years. So it's a huge area with a lot of alternance of marine and continental environments. And literally in each continental outcrop, and including also in some marine outcrops, there are deposition of flora. So then for paleobotanists, this is a perfect place to test whatever you want. The flora is a macroflora, microflora, and you can compare the size of the leaves using techniques as the analysis for the climate estimations. I want to show some results, but also trying to look for the evolution of one very interesting thing also. It's the apparition of the modern floras in South America. This is one of the papers, the base papers have produced our PhD student, Leslie Manriquez. She's studying in Brazil at the moment, and he recorded all the sequence, and now we are going in the detailed sections. The fossils include some vertebrates. This is a megaraptoriid teeth. Julia knows very well these fossils. Some flowers in the lower part of the section. These flowers has also some very interesting interpretation. Also ferns. This looks like a flower, but actually is an Echisitalian fern. Cicadalians, and also some angiosperms that were originally described as one thing, but today we have a new interpretation with a modern approximation to the taxonomy. We can estimate this plant. I want to explain you a little bit more about this. Well, also the trunks have a very good preservation. This is a locality that is correlated with the level of with hadrosaurs. This is Leandro Martinez from the Darwinian in Argentina, especially in paleosilology. And we were studying these trunks, and we have one paper for the end of this year, probably, talking about some very interesting finding and an assemblage that is unique. So ginkgos, together with agatis, together with podocarps, together with palms, and all with another angiosperms dominated by Laurasian woods. This is really weird. We have only one reference of something like this, and is in Saltillo in Mexico, connecting some of these groups together in only one locality. There are no other expression in any fossil record around the world. It's very unique. It's the only representation also of ginkgos in the Upper Cretaceous of Chile. Also, ferns are very important. There's Christine Trevisan. She's a fern expert, paleobotanist working here at INACH, together with colleagues from Brazil. We were working 10 years collecting a lot of ferns, and they have pointed something very important. What's the first alarm? Are these fossils, are these ferns connected with the modern ferns in South America? Yeah, in terms of family. But when you are going down into the taxonomy, some weird things start to arise. And one of them is, at least from the 5 original groups, 3 of them are not present in South America today and are living exclusively in Oceania, in Australia and in New Zealand. The other assemblage is the flora from sauropods. Sauropods are titanosaurs. Shows a transition in between a flora originally described as the only flora at the end of the Cretaceous, but now we have references of at least 5 stages of the flora. but this first one is closely related with very warm conditions. Then a transition of warm, humid conditions, and then cool environments. So you can see a line in between some of the lineages. That this is important because the only possibility to make this kind of graphics is when you have in the same locality different ages with outcrops of plants. So the idea is to analyze the shape of course, using some techniques as CLAMP to study the possibility to produce climatic models. Oh, this is one of the interesting things that I mentioned. Brachychaeton is today the Australian bottle tree. Is a very old genus, but the oldest record of Brachychaeton is Cenozoic in Australia. They have pentamerous flowers with 5 petals, fusion stemming in the center part, podium structure. The leaves could be 3, 5, or even sometimes 7 lobules. And those are the fossils that we found. More than 100 flowers with this exactly the same pattern, 5 petals, the stamen fusion in a number of 5 in the center part, and a podium again structure of the flower. The leaves are compared the internal architecture until the 3rd level order of veins are perfectly fit with the modern shape of Brachychaeton. So this is the oldest record of the genus Brachychaeton in the world. It's in the Cretaceous, and the second oldest one is in Australia, and today Brachychaeton is not living anymore in South America. Very provocative. Was the second example. The first one were the ferns. Then we started to look for Araucaria, the monkey puzzle. Araucarias are present in the whole sequence. We have different shapes, but all are small in size, have these imbricated leaves, with the exception of one that is really big, and we are not completely convinced today that is an Araucaria, could be Agatis, that is the sister group. And I have to say something about the actual distribution of Araucaria. Section Araucaria or Colimbea have today two different species, one in southern Chile and Argentina. This is the typical one. This is the common tree that you can find in all the documentaries from BBC. For example, Walking with Dinosaurs, the dinosaurs were walking in between these Araucarias. The second species is living in southern part of Brazil. Both are closely related with other Araucarias around the world, but the important thing is this section, Araucaria or Colimbea, wasn't present in South America or any other continent during the Mesozoic. So they have appeared at the end of the Paleogene, and so all the documentaries have to say were wrong. The second group living in today exclusively in Australia and New Zealand, Norfolk Islands, New Caledonia, this area, is the Sectio eutacta, and has a very different shape. It's a small size branches, and leaves can reach bigger sizes. And the third one is Bunja section, also restricted to Australia or Oceania. The phylogenetics are showing something really interesting. All these groups of conifers are related, but Agatis and Wulemia have an ancestral trunk with Araucaria. In the Araucaria, the oldest branch is Eutacta. And the Eutacta has these characteristics: small branches, small leaves, and the reproductive structure is typical and that is what we found in Las Chinas Valley. So our araucarias are sexio-eutacta. This is very interesting. Again, third example, a tree that is living today in Oceania and is not living anymore in South America. There is an extensive record of Eutacta genus in South America, but is completely absent today. Other example, this is the most iconic plant in the discussion about the biogeography of the southern continents, is Notophagus. We created this emblematic symbol inspired in Game of Thrones. I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones, as you can see in my cup. And for an exhibition of dinosaurs, we created this symbol. Looking from the point of view of poker, Notophagus has some biological singularities. First of all, anemophilia, the pollen long distance wind dispersed. The structure of the pollen permits the distribution of thousands of kilometers. We have traps in Antarctica, and we are capturing every day tons of or hundreds of pollen grains from Australia and from South America, and they are falling as a pollen shower. But it's very interesting that it's controversial. The finding of pollen of Notophagus in one locality it doesn't mean exactly that the group was present there. Second, anemochoria. Propagules wind dispersed also, but only a short distance. The size of the propagules is very big in terms of the possibility to will be dispersed by wind. Important to say that it's only anemochory here and anemophile, so they depend of the wind for the dispersion. It doesn't fit very well with any other model of angiosperms. Usually the angiosperms used the zoochory, so the activity or interaction with animals, to be dispersed. But in the case of Notophagus, it's a very primitive strategy and depends completely from the wind. The seeds have a very low dispersal ability. They can't reach long distances. The germination viability is short in time, so only a few months. In the longest case, more than a year. And seeds, this is key, are intolerant to seawater. That means that in arc of islands, for example, it's very difficult to be dispersed from one island to the other one. The one very good example is one island in front of the center part of Chile, just 15 kilometers from the coast. The coast is full of Notophagus, and the island has no Notophagus at all. Have all the rest of the elements of the southern forests in Chile, but not Notophagus. So to be dispersed, they need a land bridge. And the current disjunct distribution and the excellent fossil record is make Notophagus the perfect individual to be studied. Second important thing about the theories about its diversification is not completely clear today. It's Cornelius van Steenis, I don't want to pronounce all the name, in 71 have proposed an ancient area of New Caledonia and northern part of Australia as the dispersal or center of origin of the Notophagus. But later, Robert Hill and Mary Detman in 1996 have proposed one hypothetical area in southern South America and northern peninsula where these were in touch. If we look the distribution of recent Notophagus, as you can see here, the subgenus, there are 4 subgenus. The first one is Notophagus, is completely distributed only in South America, and we have the 5 species in Chile. are the group of Notophagus more tolerant to cool conditions, and including adaptations to avoid the freezing and to support snow, but they have appeared in the fossil record later. It was the last group in appear. The second group is Fuscospora, has 3 species in New Zealand, 1 in Tasmania, Notophagus guni, and only 1 living species in the center part of Chile, unfortunately in the coastal cordillera or coastal ridge, and this area was affected by intense big huge burns. These fires have provoked the separation of one of the reserves. Is under protection today, is disappearing, and we consider it a real living fossil because it's one of the oldest groups related with the information from the fossils and also from the phylogenetics with molecular techniques. The third subgenus is Lophosonia. It's living 4 species in Chile and Argentina, 1 in New Zealand, another 2 in Queensland in Australia. And the last group with a high number of species is Brassospora. Is only living in New Caledonia today, and that's the reason why Fanstenis have postulated this area as the center of origin and distribution. But 3 years ago, we started with a work in Nelson Island, Stanbury Peninsula, in an area called Reed Point, a very interesting area because it's really close to our stations. Our main stations are here in Fields area. So it's just taking a boat and 20 minutes sailing, and you can spend all the day and go back to the station in the night to sleep and eat very well in a warm and comfortable conditions. So we were working in this area for around a month, and where another 3 expeditions have worked, and they never found before Notophagus. It's very interesting because we were lucky. Just in the coast area, under 20 centimeters of sand, we found this first huge fossil of Notophagus with all the structures and characteristics. There are at least 5 characteristics they have to accomplish to be considered part of the group, and they have all the commitment with the group. The area uncovered by the sand looks like this: is rock in the bed, but with only one problem. Every day with the high tide was covered again, and so every morning we came again waiting for the good conditions, lower tide, to clean and to take samples, make photographs, and of course start to study. And today we are finishing a paper. This is part of a report that we prepared 2 years ago in an international conference, showing leaves and together with pollen grains that are typically Notophagus. But the most important thing about this locality is exactly 2 characteristics. First of all, the leaves are pointing to a close relationship with this group of this living fossil in the center part of Chile. Remember, Notophagus alessandri. So is connected with the ancestral branch of the Notophagus. And the second very important thing is about, oh, sorry. Yes. It's about the age. The range was 83 to 87 million years. So this is the oldest record of Notophagus in any part of the world. The next one is in Antarctica too. It's 81 million years. And I want to discuss it further because if we look again to Las Chinas Valley and this alternance of marine and continental environments, as you can see here in the column, and looking for the assemblages that we have established in the upper part of the sequence, Notophagus is present today in at least 4 more, probably because we have thin layers in each locality, with a uncontroversially described Notophagus. This plant is the oldest record in South America. It's the only locality in South America at the moment with Notophagus in the Mesozoic. And the most interesting thing about this is those are the draws that we are preparing for the paper, are these ages. 83 million years in Antarctica versus 78 million years in Patagonia. This is very iconic, and this is one of the most important things. How these localities very close, Antarctica and southern Patagonia, were really close in terms of distance, but they have no correlation in the ages. Maybe we can we will find new fossils in the near future, but today there is a difference of around 5 million years, and that could be explained because of the intermittent appearance of these land bridges produced by glaciologicity. So today we are focused in correlate these events are in a global scale, are a local phenomena, are connected with tectonics, or are connected with climate. Other very controversial thing connecting that what I was pointing out from the very beginning of the analysis of the flora is that the origin of the South American forest. So many paleobotanists have postulated this idea before, supporting the idea of the Valdivian forest, the forests that are in the region of the lakes. The Lake District in Chile is considered something characteristic and closely related with Antarctica. That is true, but for the Cenozoic. But when you are going to the Mesozoic, the similarities are not connected with South America exactly. Araucaria I have mentioned are sexual. Eutacta is today living in Oceania. Retrophyllum is a podocarp, very special, with a very localized distribution in Colombia and Venezuela, part of Brazil, and in New Caledonia and Australia. Brachychaeton is a bottle tree of Australia. Schizia and Aculia, so there are 2 ferns found in also in Oceania, not in Chile today, and the new finding of eucalyptus. We have leaves and also floral structures. This will be very controversial and will be part of one important paper that we are waiting to finish some analysis, but it is important because it is considered today that the oldest record of eucalyptus in the world is from the Eocene of Patagonia. Eucalyptus is a typical group of from Oceania, and of course there are information before about the origin in South America. But we are moving back in time around 30 million years, this origin. So everything is pointing down under, and Australia has some role in this ancient distribution of organisms, but several questions remain. Other important thing is just citing this fantastic paper of Matt Lamana and collaborators, including Julia, and checking all the dinosaurs that you can see in the lower part. Ankylosauria, we have today suspicious skeletons in Las Chinas that could be. Early but diverging ornithopods are present. Hadrosaurs are present in Las Chinas that are very abundant. Titanosaurs also, and no avian theropods too. And the age is similar. We have to say that hadrosaurs is one of the key groups to understand the distribution. Probably they have dispersed from South America into Antarctica. So it's a very interesting approach, the comparison of vertebrates. Of course, I'm a paleobotanist and I can make further analysis, but also to communicate this recent publication of freshwater turtles from the locality of Las Chinas. This fantastic reconstruction is just pointing that we have at least 5 groups, different groups of reptiles, not considering dinosaurs. Also, the first mammal of Chile, the oldest one, the first Mesozoic mammal called Magayanovon. It's a name very Magellanic, so to make proud our people about this oldest mammal in Chile. But those are the preservation of the teeth, very beautiful, published 1 year ago. This is the reconstruction. I'm really proud about also the reconstruction of the flora. They were very focused in trying to put all the elements of the level where the Magayanovon was present. So also we have communicated for the young people in Chile about this animal that was a great success in the media. The second one was recently published some weeks ago, the Orreterium sen. Orreterium is a name based in an Indian language called Aonikenk. It's another mammal, another extinguished lineage of mammals, the Meridiolisthidan mammals, and also is one of the southernmost records of these mammals in the world, and very interesting because of the preservation of a jaw with some teeth. There is Agustin Martinelli working together with Jonathan Calusa in one of the tents. The conditions to work are mainly in tents. And this joke that we make, one of the iconic mammals in Chile and southern South America is the Mylodon darwini. So today we have these new elements in the cast. It's Magayanovon and Orreterium. The work is progressing, and this is a fantastic piece of a dinosaur that will be probably in the news soon, because we are finishing the analysis and reconstruction of the environment. And but the most controversial thing is, of course, the comparison with the other elements around the world, and have to say that it's one of the most complete dinosaurs in Chile. To finish, I put this beautiful reconstruction with dromaeosaurs and Begabis that was published in Nat Geo, in National Geographic, and I collaborate. Julia invited me to collaborate with this reconstruction, so I am proud also about the flora. This Eutacta araucarias, some Proteaceae, also Guneras in the front line, and some cycads in the back. Just to say some conclusions. First of all, plate tectonic does not explain all the distribution of organisms. We thought in the past that was the big answer to the macroevolution patterns, but today we have this distribution very not regular and not connected with a major displacement of the continents and connection between land masses. Probably were better explained with the sea level fluctuations connected with these cooling events at the end of the Cretaceous. The climate change processes at the end of the Cretaceous, I have said, and beginning of the Paleogene show short cooling pulses. The short cooling pulses may have eventually developed into glacial eustasy. Sea level changes combined with the geographic setting played a central role in shaping the unique biota of the southern Gondwana fragments. And the timing of this connection and disconnection was very important also to understand how the borders were and how the apparition of these new species that you can trace perfectly in the 20 million years interval of Las Chinas. The shaping effect of climate plus the continental drift explain the floristic and faunal similarities of most of the austral continents. And a new interpretation of the fossil record coupled with the molecular phylogenetic studies is beginning to fit into a model that explains the inheritance of Weddelian biogeographic province. The fossil record of Southern Patagonia and Antarctica are key to elucidating the outstanding questions. And I want to point out some of these questions, but saying that Cerro Guido Las Chinas complex contains at least 20 million years of the Mesozoic, the last part of the Mesozoic and part of the Cenozoic, more than 10 different fossil plant outcrops speak about a natural history of major climatic and floristic changes closely related. So far, it is the southernmost marine continental locality with the KPG record. Its flora represents the earliest record of a Gondwanan flora, a possible ancestor of the biota of Oceania. This is one of the most controversial things. Paleontologically, it is one of the most diverse Cretaceous localities in high southern latitudes, and it has a unique record of the lapses of connection and disconnection with Antarctica during the Cretaceous. But we have more questions now. Why do the floristic list of casts of New Zealand and Queensland in Australia contain so many elements of the Cretaceous flora of southern Patagonia? Understanding that, at least in the models of sea currents and wind, the prevalence of these westerlies or the winds from the west to the east is against the distribution of some of these plants, especially plants. Animals can be placed against the wind and the sea currents. But what's the explanation for this huge movement that was detected in the 70s? Also, the relationship in between South America and Oceania. What was the driving force behind the anti-clockwise migration of plants and animals during the late Cretaceous? Big question, I have no answer. And are the Fagacia really the ancestor of the Notophagus? This is other controversial thing. It's we have in mind the paleobotanist, and of course in all the literature we have this idea that the Fagacia, that are the oaks in the northern hemisphere, were the precursors of Notophagus. But today we are finding fossils that are close to the border of the 87 million years old, and probably the oldest record of both lineages. So is in that way north-south, or could be south-north? It's a very provocative idea, and I want to put it over the table. So thank you very much for listening. This is a short summary of our expeditions during the last 10 years. It's a fantastic outcrop. It's a dream for any paleontologist. And I want to thank the collaboration that we have for a long time with Julia and her team, and Brian also, Horton, Saras, and all the people where came from the States to Las Chinas. And we are finishing every campaign with a fantastic lamp prepared with wood of Notophagus, of course. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much again, Marcelo, for coming and speaking to us virtually today. And with that, I guess we'll see you in some minutes coming up here.
Okay, thank you. I'll end the meeting. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.